The room smelled of roasted turkey and pine, a perfect scene for what was supposed to be a warm Christmas dinner. Instead, it felt like a stage set for humiliation. I had spent hours preparing, decorating, and cooking, each detail carefully arranged, hoping for one evening of peace, one night where the weight of judgment could lift even slightly. Then my parents spoke. "Move out. This house is going up for sale. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. Your one tap truly motivates me to keep creating for you." The words didn't echo. They landed like hammers, precise, cold, and final. There was no preamble, no discussion, no consideration for years of memories, effort, or the life I had built within these walls. Just a verdict, delivered in the same tone they used when instructing a servant or dismissing a failure. I looked at them, waiting for some flicker of emotion, remorse, hesitation, acknowledgement of the pain they inflicted, but there was none. Only smug certainty, the kind that comes from absolute belief in one's authority. My sister, seated nearby, smiled faintly, the corners of her lips betraying satisfaction. She had orchestrated this, subtly, for months, planting suggestions and stirring frustrations until my parents were ready to act as her enforcers. I felt the familiar surge of anger, but I swallowed it. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. Instead, I studied them, the precision of their cruelty, the comfort they took in their authority, the illusion of control they believed they had over me. For years, I had tried to play their game, obeying their rules, tolerating their judgment, shrinking my existence to fit their expectations. But not tonight. For the first time, I recognized that their power existed only because I had allowed it. The house, the inheritance, the judgments, they were tools they had misused to dominate me. Yet here I was standing at the precipice, seeing clearly that leaving on their terms would be the same as giving in. And I wasn't going to give in. I smiled softly, not in triumph, not in malice, but in understanding. Their declaration marked the end of one chapter, but it also opened the door to something far more significant, a life where I determined my value, my space, and my freedom. Tonight, they thought they were winning, but they had no idea what was coming. After the Christmas dinner, I left the table without confrontation. Their words had landed sharp and precise, but I refused to let them dictate my next move in panic or anger. I had spent years preparing quietly, building stability, while they believed I was powerless. Tonight, I realized how much I had accumulated in patience, strategy, and resources they didn't even know existed. I found a small, secure apartment within the city, modest, yes, but entirely mine. No one's approval was required to step across its threshold. As I unpacked, each item I placed was a quiet declaration of independence, a reminder that my life had value beyond their perception. For the first time, the freedom I had glimpsed only in imagination became tangible. While I settled in, I began to review my finances, my assets, my options. Years of silent preparation bore fruit. Savings tucked away, investments overlooked, opportunities nurtured in the background. All gave me leverage they would never anticipate. My parents assumed urgency, panic, or desperation would rule my actions. Instead, calm and calculated determination guided each choice. Meanwhile, news of the house's impending sale spread. Relatives and acquaintances who once sided with my parents' narrative approached me cautiously, testing reactions, looking for signs of weakness. I responded evenly, offering no overreaction, no dramatics, only subtle assurance that my life was not subject to anyone else's whims. Their assumptions about my helplessness quickly evaporated. I began strategically reclaiming what they thought was theirs to manipulate: documents, legal papers, even the small residual control they assumed over shared assets. Each step was deliberate, They had tried to corner me through emotional and financial pressure, but the very tools they had believed would enforce their dominance became the instruments of my independence. My brother's occasional threats, my sister's smug interventions, and my parents' pointed remarks were all recorded, cataloged, and stored, not in vengeance, but as preparation. Months passed. Their plan to unsettle and humiliate me lost its impact as my life stabilized. I negotiated quietly, securing housing and resources without relying on their consent. I engaged with mutual connections, subtly reinforcing my competence and autonomy. Those who had once whispered doubts now paused, recognizing the shift in power. Then came the pivotal moment. My parents attempted to enforce a financial maneuver, believing they could coerce me into vacating the house entirely before the sale. I countered with documentation, legal clarity, and a calm confidence they could not challenge. The leverage they had assumed over me evaporated instantly. My brother's threats became hollow. My sister's confidence cracked. Even my parents' composure showed signs of strain, subtle but unmistakable. By the time the sale deadline approached, the tables had completely turned. They had expected to dictate terms, to control my movements, to assert dominance over my life. Instead, I had orchestrated my freedom with patience, planning, and quiet determination. Their smirks and judgments were meaningless against the structure I had built, stable, independent, untouchable. And through it all, I remained calm. I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I let the truth, preparation, and quiet mastery speak for themselves. By the time they realized the control they had assumed was gone, I had already moved into a life entirely of my own making, beyond their reach, beyond their judgment. When the day of the house sale arrived, I watched from a distance as my parents' plan unraveled without my intervention. Their confidence, once unwavering, had faltered over weeks of meticulous preparation on my part. The house they had assumed would be my cage, a tool of their authority, had become irrelevant. My life no longer hinged on their whims. Every step I had taken, from securing my own space to organizing finances and legal protections, ensured I was untouchable regardless of their intentions. I returned to the scene briefly, not for confrontation, not for spectacle, but to demonstrate quiet mastery. My parents looked at me, their faces etched with surprise and frustration. They had expected panic, tears, or at least compliance. They received calm, presence, and an undeniable sense of sovereignty. My brother's threats were meaningless now, mere echoes of a control they had lost long ago. My sister's smugness dissolved under the reality of my independence. The Christmas decorations I had lovingly placed in my childhood home remained in place, but they no longer symbolized submission. Instead, they became a testament to endurance and quiet resilience. Each ornament, each detail I had contributed over the years reminded me, and anyone who noticed, that the life they had attempted to diminish was mine to shape, regardless of their judgments. The lesson was undeniable. Power is never granted by others. It is claimed through patience, preparation, and self-respect. Their attempts at control, their orders, their dismissals, they existed only as long as I allowed them to. I had chosen not to allow them. I had reclaimed my autonomy quietly but completely. And in doing so, I redefined the rules of engagement. By the evening's end, I had created a life beyond their reach. I could enter any room, speak any word, take any step without hesitation. Their authority, once intimidating, now seemed fragile and irrelevant. I had left their house under threat, but I returned not with vengeance, not with anger, but with clarity, freedom, and absolute control over my own narrative.